Self-aggrandizing, superfluous nonsense. I mean, he's basically irresistible to people for the.
Hello there. Welcome into a Monday edition of the show. So glad to have you, whether you've chosen to listen on your radio, online at extrasports1300.com, or you've downloaded the free Extra Sports 1300 app to do your listening. And that app is sponsored by Diversus Health, mental health, and well-being for all. A veritable cornucopia of sports topics await you, and I'd love to get your thoughts. 719-247-1313 is where you could either call or text into the show. Actually, unbusy the phones, and we're ready to go. Or you can tweet at me at Gingerly Tweets. You know where we're spending most of this show, and you know where I'm going to start the show here. So let's just get to it, shall we? It was, for the Denver Nuggets, no doubt, a more enjoyable experience this year in the postseason as compared to last year, I would say. But in the end, we still end up in the same place. Another Game 7 embarrassment, 125-93. And the reality that this team is really no closer to winning another title than they were 1 year ago. In fact, you could make the argument that they've taken a step back in some ways by firing Michael Malone in Calvin Booth, and they need to figure out who two key leaders in their organization are going to be moving forward. But I do think all of this is a necessary step, as much as it would have been nice to see the Nuggets win yesterday, go on to the Western Conference Finals, to see that progress from last year. I do think even losing in the way they did last night, I think it's necessary in a way. The sentiment that, and I've gotten a little bit of it from people, the sentiment that, oh, well, the Nuggets could have won that series in 6. And I think in some ways you could look at that and say that, but I could just as easily say they should have lost it in 5. I mean, if we're really being honest in our assessment of the comparison between the Denver Nuggets and OKC from a talent perspective, really that series should have been done in 5. You got some heroics along the way, and credit to Denver, right? They hung in there. Aaron Gordon with the game winner in game 1, and some of the other players who have stepped up along the way, they deserve all the credit. And you also throw in some, I think, youthful mistakes on the part of the Oklahoma City Thunder, a team that was maturing, and I thought the Game 4 win was really the turning point for them. That they kind of, that championship DNA kind of came out of them. I think this series, we were really on borrowed time. If you really look at it, the Nuggets were on borrowed time. They probably shouldn't have been playing a 7th game against Oklahoma City. You look at it, 2 of the games were blowouts, Game 2 and Game 7. They weren't even competitive for the vast majority of the game. Game 3, everything goes right for Denver in ways that didn't really go right for them at any other point. So you tell me what's the outlier. Michael Porter hitting 5 of 6 threes in Game 3, or the way the rest of the series went for him, right? Peyton Watson in that game was a net positive. He didn't make an impact on this series outside of Game 3. Game 1, you get Nikola Jokic single-handedly keeping you in it. You just look at these games, and you have to see in retrospect how outgunned the Denver Nuggets were in this series. And that's the thing about 7-game series, as opposed to the one-offs that we do in March Madness or the NFL playoffs. The best team usually wins. Okay, it may take a little while to get there, but the best team usually wins. And Oklahoma City, I don't think you could doubt that they were the best team in this series. If the Nuggets are close yesterday, or let's say they win for whatever reason, let's say they win, do the changes that really need to happen? Or does this give Josh Kroenke all the ammunition he needs to just say, oh, it was just Michael Malone? It was just that toxicity. I don't think you come away from Game 7 saying that everything with this roster is right. Far from it. I think some of the heroics, some of the greatness displayed by Nikola Jokic masks some of the deep-seated issues within this roster. So in that way, losing like that, as unenjoyable of an experience as that was, I feel like it's necessary, because now that reality is facing everyone, including Josh Kroenke. I mean, this was a great experiment, right? You remove the Michael Malone variable out of it, and you put more on the roster and make that more front and center to really assess who the Nuggets are and where they go from here. And I think these 2 rounds were very helpful in that regard. But if they get past Oklahoma City, then I think there's 100% chance that they just run it back. Because, we got a step further. We're making progress. So given that the season ends in the same place, you could say, well, certainly there wasn't enough progress. Some progress in some areas, but not enough progress. The last few weeks they've been a great distraction. And the players, Nikola Jokic and Aaron Gordon, most notably, deserve all the credit in the world for hanging in there. They really do. But the fact of the matter is they had no business playing yesterday. Not just because the Thunder were good enough to finish off the Nuggets earlier in the series, but they really should have lost to the Clippers, for being honest. That was a bad matchup for them. And they were able to find their way through. You know, Josh Kroenke said it himself after the last time the Nuggets went out with a whimper in a Game 7. That was last year against Minnesota. They were built under a different financial structure in the league. And now they have to make real adjustments to be in line with how to win in today's NBA. It doesn't change anything, what happened yesterday. In fact, it just reinforces it. The Nuggets need to try to make some significant changes to this roster, or they can't reasonably expect to advance any further for the foreseeable future. Because it's Minnesota last year, it's OKC this year, next year it's going to be Houston. They're just going to keep getting passed up while they're standing still. And by the way, I hate it. I hate everything about this. I hate the way that the NBA has built themselves now. Because the Denver Nuggets have been punished. They've been punished for doing things the right way, for building this up through the draft and development, and they waited and waited and waited. They didn't just chase any star that came around. They waited for the right one in Aaron Gordon. And he made all the difference. They did everything right, and they won a title. And then the NBA just decided, we want everyone to have a turn. So now we're going to make it incredibly punitive for you to keep this championship team together. And since then, all the Nuggets have done is gotten, in many ways, worse. That doesn't make sense. That's not the way it should go. Yeah, you're always going to lose guys. But the Nuggets have been losing key members of this team. And I feel like in some ways, they got to sink even lower in some ways. To me, they have to give up some of that top line talent in order to build this roster in a way that can get them back to an NBA Finals. So I hate for my sentiment out of the gate here to be it could get worse before it gets better. But it might have to. And it's just in a lot of ways, it's the world they live in. I mean, that's the world. Stan Kroenke, by the way, never lose sight of the fact that the Nuggets owner was one of the proponents of the way the NBA does business now. So when I say I hate it and when I feel for people, it's not the Kroenke family. They asked for this. It's the players, most notably Nikola Jokic, who continues to see the roster deteriorate around him. It's for you, the fan, who it shouldn't be that you get one and you're just okay. There should be a reasonable expectation level that you're going to really get close to winning another one. Maybe you never will, but it just feels like they don't really have a chance right now. And that's not the way it should be. It was a fun ride. It was. There were so many moments from these playoffs that we'll look back on fondly, but ended up in the same place. This team not good enough to win a title this year. As currently constructed, not good enough to win a title next year. And now, honestly, the real work begins. I made this comparison before between the Avs and the Nuggets. Really firing Michael Malone and Calvin Booth was akin to the Avalanche swapping out their goaltending room. Like, it was just necessary. It needed to happen. It was never the only thing that they would do. And we saw that with the Colorado Avalanche, that they went out and did multiple things of note. But they had to fix that first before these other changes could happen. And I feel like it's the same way with the Denver Nuggets. It was necessary to remove that toxicity that existed between Michael Malone and Calvin Booth. They had to do that. Now, they didn't make any subsequent moves. They didn't do anything much just because of where the calendar was when they ultimately decided to make these moves. But now's the time. Is there a Mikko Rantanen trade coming up? Is there an acquisition of a Brock Nelson? Like, are the Denver Nuggets going to have an offseason that resembles the second half of the season that the Avs had in terms of making moves and really reconfiguring this roster? I think that they have to. Because, again, it was Minnesota and then it's OKC. Next year, it'll probably be Houston. They have to, in many ways, get with the program. It's fine that they're a little different than everybody else. And having a superstar like Nikola Jokic lends itself to that. You're going to be a little bit different. You're not going to be like everybody else. And that's a good thing. But I just think that the Denver Nuggets are being forced here into conforming a little bit more than they would like to. They can't be so different. And if we're talking about one basketball thing that I would immediately point at, their inability to be relied on to knock down three-pointers. Like, it's fine that you don't take as many as everybody else. And certainly no one wants them to turn into the Boston Celtics where that's all they're doing. You don't have to do a complete 180, but they can't be this great outlier of we don't want to take threes, and when we do, they don't go in. That can't continue. And you want to look at the games where the Denver Nuggets, either the game got out of hand or they ultimately ended up losing the game. It's their inability to knock down threes. They have to do something about that. And we'll debate, whether that's taking a core member of this team and moving on from them, or it's a smaller move, but they got to get more guys to hit shots. It's an oversimplification to say the Nuggets bowed out of the playoffs in the second round because they couldn't knock down shots, but it's the number one reason, right? It's at the top of the list. You got to conform a little bit more, and I don't see that. All the credit in the world to Aaron Gordon for upping his three-point percentage and Nikola Jokic. They got to get more guys to hit threes. It's how the NBA works. And they got to try to get deeper. And depth doesn't necessarily have to mean they have 10 guys, but how about 6? By the end of this series, the Nuggets had 4 players. I mean, if we're really looking at it, 4. You had Porter in game 3. You had Strother in game 6. So maybe they had at every point, they had 5 players that were playing well. And not even that, really, because some of those other nights, maybe Nikola Jokic didn't have a good game or Jamal Murray. I don't think the Nuggets actually had 5 players in any one game all playing well. I think the maximum was like 4. And when we're talking about depth in a more traditional sense, Russell Westbrook was nothing. Peyton Watson had 1 game. Julian Strother had 1 90-second stretch. They got to get with the times more. And Josh Kroenke said it himself. They were built under a different model. Well, the model has to change. And simply replacing Calvin Booth and David and Michael Malone, I should say, I don't think is enough. But that's part of it, and that was a necessary first step, and we'll see where they go from here. I'll take your thoughts at 719-247-1313. Speaking, I guess it was a slip of the tongue because I want to talk about David Adelman. So now you have the Nuggets season in its totality. You have the David Adelman audition in its totality. Has he done enough for you to be okay with him being named the full-time head coach? Give you my thoughts on that. Take yours, and you'll hear the Nuggets' thoughts on that as well. 719-24-7-1313 is the number. Your thoughts on the Nuggets season ending in the same place last year's did. Did you see progress? And if not, what needs to happen to move this team closer to winning another NBA title? Let's get to a few texts here. Tom says MPJ contract will kill the Nuggets. Might be a worse signing than Russell Wilson. Get to Porter, and if the Nuggets can extricate themselves from his contract coming up. From the 719, good Lord, who turned the Nuggets lights off? Absolutely ashamed to watch. Oh, well, maybe a new GM will get us a team. And then this coming in from Chris. Thumbs up to is a 4-game losing streak ideal right now? No, but firing Malone seems ridiculous at this point. Let me jump off of that. The firing of Michael Malone and the interim tagging of David Adelman. I actually do think that Josh Kroenke can feel a fair amount of vindication for having fired Michael Malone. I don't think this team gets to yesterday's game as things were going. I really don't. I think they needed this beyond, and I talked about it in the last segment, I think to kind of remove that variable, I think is important to really assess this team, specifically the roster. So I think that was helpful. But I do also think that the Nuggets along the way accomplished a little bit more than I would have expected them to when they made the move. Right? There were people saying that firing Michael Malone would end the Denver Nuggets. It would ruin them. It certainly didn't ruin them. Did it get them further than they would have gone? I say yes. What say you? I think the team, the players, they took more ownership of the situation. I think they felt empowered to a degree that they hadn't under Michael Malone. And I think more than anything, and you could chalk it up to, that old adage of the voice falling on deaf ears, needing a new voice. I think he just wore on them. I mean, he's the one that threw out the word dynasty before anybody asked. And he coached the team that way. I mean, he put himself out there. He put the team out there. Because even if they would have gone back to back, they wouldn't have been a dynasty yet. Like, he was jumping for an organization that for a long time had the mantra of we don't skip steps. Like, we went from the Nuggets winning no titles to now becoming the next dynasty with one win over the Miami Heat. And I think he coached the team that way. He coached the team hard and put a lot of pressure on them because he put himself out there with that. I think firing him, if nothing else, got the Nuggets back to a position that they thrive in or have thrived in, and that's nobody believes in us. That's how they won their first title. Nobody believes in us. But after you win that first title, that's gone. Everyone believes in you. You've shown it. Now, what's the next thing? What's the next thing to get this team motivated to be able to keep on pushing forward? And I don't think Malone had that. I don't think he had an answer for it. And he just kept coaching the same way, and it just wore on the Denver Nuggets. Now, the reality of the situation is at some point, the Nuggets are going to have to learn to be able to play when people believe in them. Right? Because even though Michael Malone may have done something he shouldn't have by throwing the word dynasty out there. I mean, it's a goal for every championship team to become a dynasty. They all want to be a dynasty. Nobody wants to be one and done. You just don't say it out loud in the post-game press conference after you won the first title in the history of that franchise. So at some point, the Nuggets are going to have to deal with the weight of expectation. They're going to have to find another motivating factor besides no one believes in us. But having a coach that doesn't add more pressure than there needs to be, a coach that lets them figure it out for themselves, a coach with maybe a different approach to the slog that is an 82-game regular season, I think they need that. And the question is that David Adelman? I guess the first thing, just to double check, does David Adelman even want the gig?
I don't think it's time for me to think about that. We just lost Game 7. Our season's over. Decision makers will make that decision. Obviously, blessed to have this opportunity to take the helm and lead this team. Something, obviously, if I'm not back next year, I'll obviously never forget this. It's been an incredible experience. And to have the buy-in from the guys was really special for me.
I think David Adelman did two of the three things I mentioned. I think he certainly didn't add pressure. He did allow the team to kind of figure it out themselves. Was a little bit more hands-off. And perhaps that was out of necessity. Right? The guy's thrown into the fire with 3 games left in the regular season. I mean, he's not going to be an overbearing head coach. Now, the question is that just him all the time? Is what we saw, his coaching style, the players taking more ownership, is that something we can expect moving forward from a David Adelman coach team, or with the training camp, with an offseason, and now being the full-time head coach, does some of that kind of go away? And that's what I think he'll have to share in interviews with Josh Kroenke is what this looks like. What does a David Adelman coach team look like? You could definitely tell at times he subscribes to some of the Michael Malone stuff. The us against the world. Adelman played that up a few times. So the apple doesn't fall too far from the tree. The coaching tree. But is he different? I saw a coach that's different in a lot of the right ways than Michael Malone. And is that who David Adelman is, or was some of the ways that he coached this team just because of the situation he was thrust into? How he would approach a regular season, we don't know. I mean, that's the thing. We have no idea. What it would look like with David Adelman. Aaron Gordon certainly would like to see it.
Yeah, I love DA. I hope he's here next year. I hope he's our coach. I hope he gets an entire training camp and a whole offseason and a whole training camp to figure out his philosophy. DA in Orlando. We have DA here. DA is great. He was excellent for us, and I hope that he's here next year.
Jamal Murray and Michael Porter both gave ringing endorsements of David Adelman. But the most important voice in that locker room, especially right now, is, of course, Nikola Jokic, whether Jokic wants to be that voice or not.
And I think he changed the energy. I think the guys were woken up a little bit. The guys had more energy. He made us believe in something, and we played good. We played a seven game series with probably the best team in NBA, and we had opportunity, we had chances. So I think he did a really good job.
And as far as the future goes for him,
I'm not the guy to add. I mean, it's above my pay grade.
I mean, he always. I mean, he basically just laid out why he would like David Adelman to be his next head coach, and then when actually pressed, like at some point, Jokic can't do that, where he says all these things, and you're going to hear other stuff from him later about the roster. Like you can't say all of that stuff and then be like, "Well, but it's not my call." Like, yeah, we know ultimately you're not the one that signs the checks, but your voice carries more weight than anybody. And it doesn't mean that Josh Kroenke has to hire David Adelman if Nikola Jokic wants him to be the head coach. That's not what this is about. This is about our most important player, if we're the Denver Nuggets, what does he think? And valuing that opinion, that's all. Valuing the opinion, not kowtowing, not blindly following him, but like taking into account. So yeah, Jokic can say all he wants. I'm not the guy to make those decisions. That's above my pay grade. Like, you know, every employee knows what he or she would want in a boss. Just unfortunately, people don't have the ability to influence that decision. Nikola Jokic does. If he likes David Adelman, say you like David Adelman. Say you'd like to see it. Which he basically did. Well, I don't think it would be a bad idea to hire David Adelman to make him the full-time head coach. We've seen it in other sports. You know what? If you have the buy-in of the players, like that matters a lot. Okay, and clearly the team responded to him. So that's the best thing David Adelman has going for him as he tries to get this job. The players responded. The players bought in. Is it the be-all, end-all? No. But it goes a long way. What they do with head coach is going to say a lot about how Josh Kroenke views this playoff run. Right? Because we're discussing, you know, should the Nuggets have won it in 6 or lost it in 5? And that certainly tells what perspective you have on how close the Denver Nuggets are. But if Josh Kroenke just rubber stamps David Adelman to become the next head coach, then that would tell me Josh Kroenke doesn't think this team is that far away. That they needed a lot of what Michael Malone had without a couple of things, and David Adelman being one of his top assistants, certainly learned from him, certainly probably took some tips from him, but is just different enough. And maybe part of this is just needing a different voice. So if David Adelman becomes the head coach, and especially if Ben Tenzer becomes the GM, he's the interim GM right now, that tells me that Josh Kroenke feels like, oh, it was just Malone and Booth bickering back and forth. Now, do I agree with that? No. But I could see Josh Kroenke landing there. I don't know if Adelman will use next season, if he does get the job, to develop Watson, Strother, Pickett, now Deron Holmes, who's going to be coming back and is essentially a rookie this upcoming season. But that has to be, whoever they name the head coach, that has to be a part of their philosophy. I think one thing that we've learned through all of this is that we just shouldn't put as much stock into the regular season as we do, because there are certain aspects of this team that will get turned on, that the switch will get flipped, and we don't have to, get overly obsessed with what's going on during the regular season. But one thing that has to happen next year, these guys got to play. They got to play. They got to develop. They got to be trusted. They got to be put into big moments because ultimately they could not be relied upon. We didn't see Jalen Pickett. Julian Strother had 90 seconds in game 6. Peyton Watson was good in game 3, and that was about it. They have to put more into these guys, or whatever combination of them remains when next season starts. They have to do that. I mean, none of these guys have followed Christian Brown's arc. Like, the idea was to get more Christian Browns, and there's only been one. They can't even get decent bench minutes out of these guys, let alone the projecting them to replace a Michael Porter or a Jamal Murray or an Aaron Gordon. But again, to me, the general manager matters way more than the head coach. Because I think at least you have somebody in-house that you feel pretty good about in David Adelman. Whether you feel good about him to make him the head coach, we'll find out. But at least you have like a leader in the clubhouse. What are they going to do at general manager? And clearly, what now exists is a major roster problem. Well, it's always existed, but it's even more out in the open. We can all see it, how flawed this roster is. So I don't feel as strongly about whether David Adelman gets the job or not, as much as I feel strongly about making sure they get the absolute best person they possibly can to be the head coach. And that option does not exist in-house. I'll just say that right here. Maybe David Adelman's the right guy to coach this team. They don't have the right general manager candidate in the building. They need an outside set of eyes. They need somebody who is not tied to any of these players, does not have a great affinity for any one of them, and can just come in with a fresh perspective and say, this is what needs to be done. And I don't care that Jamal Murray worked his way back from the ACL. I don't care that Michael Porter has been battling all of these injuries. I need to move them in order to accomplish what I want to accomplish, which should be making the Nuggets more in line with what wins in today's NBA. So if David Adelman gets the job, great. If he doesn't, there are probably other candidates that are qualified. The general manager job is the one that they have to get it right. They can't mess around, because that's what they did the last time. They just rubber stamped Calvin Booth, and we saw what happened. Now, there's something worth mentioning when it comes to Calvin Booth and his ideas versus the execution of those ideas that I want to get into in a little bit. But I'll take your thoughts for now. Should David Adelman get the job? 719-247-1313. Now, I don't want to spend a whole lot of time talking about the game itself yesterday, because that was just depressing. But what Aaron Gordon did yesterday, it deserves to be talked about, even if everything else with the Denver Nuggets was so horrible yesterday. Taking your thoughts on the Nuggets season coming to an end from the 719. I feel like coaches are not as important with Jokic. You could have any decent coach and win a title. You need the best executives for roster construction, especially in today's league. If they promote in-house, say goodbye to the title window. Fantastic points, and I agree with you 1,000%. Yeah, that's the hire that matters more. It doesn't mean it doesn't matter who they make their next head coach. But if they don't get GM right, it won't be good. The NBA is a players league. This coming from the 303. The NBA is a players league. Get some consistent players. This has zero to do with any coach. So I think I feel like me and two texters anyway, which I think is that a quorum? If it's the three of us, I think we all agree that the real changes need to be made to the roster, and simply by, and it's not going to be easy. Like that's part of it here. The Nuggets are not in an easy spot, which means it's even more important for them to get the best possible GM in-house that they can, or coming into the house, not in-house. No more in-house. You could do that for head coach, and I'd be okay with it. Outsider, new ideas, bring it in here. That's what the Denver Nuggets need. And I don't think the next GM should be closed-minded about anything. Right? I think, especially to start, there are no bad ideas. But I'll just say that, save for Nikola Jokic, the next player that should be way down on the list of consideration of moving is Aaron Gordon. What he did yesterday to show his commitment to this team, his desire to win for this team and for his teammates, that loyalty, risking even more significant injury by playing yesterday, that kind of loyalty should be, as much as you can, rewarded and reciprocated. Okay, so when we talk about who the Nuggets need to move, who they can move, Aaron Gordon's got to be on the back burner. We're not really going to get into Aaron Gordon and Nikola Jokic. Okay, let's fully flush out these other candidates. And I think every single other player on this roster is in that mix. Let's flush out all these ideas for these guys. And then, worst case scenario, we can look at Aaron Gordon and Nikola Jokic and what you do. But all options are on the table before Gordon and Jokic. And only when those are exhausted can we even broach this subject. I think Aaron Gordon has earned that much. He could have easily bowed out of Game 7 and not a single person would have blamed him. I would not have criticized Aaron Gordon for not giving it a go. He could have bowed out, said, no, this is really messed up. And that's what we were told all weekend. His hamstring is really messed up. There was, even if he played, there was the reality that even if the Nuggets got through Game 7, Aaron Gordon would be hampered by this the entirety of the Wolves series. He risked significant injury to be out there for Game 7. And the crazy thing about it, but it is so on brand, Aaron Gordon didn't even really give a thought to not being out there yesterday.
Oh, I never said no. There was never a doubt in my mind that I wasn't going to play today. The only thing that made me doubt playing was the MRI. The MRI told me something worse than what I was feeling.
That his leg was going to fall off? Wonder what that was. But he didn't even give it a second thought. He was out there and he was battling. And you know what the crazy thing about it is? Christian Brown deserves credit for the way he played. Aaron Gordon was pretty much better than everyone not named Christian Brown yesterday. Isn't that crazy? And also incredibly depressing at the same time. Aaron Gordon was at worst the second best player on the floor for the Denver Nuggets. Second most productive. Well, let me put it that way. The second most productive player the Nuggets had was basically hobbling around on one leg. And I mean that as a slight to the Denver Nuggets and their performance yesterday, but more so to give Aaron Gordon his flowers. That dude's a gamer. And you take that with the dunk against the Clippers, the buzzer beater to beat the Thunder in game 1. Even just him working on his three-point shooting to the level he did. When so many other players we look at on this roster and say they weren't any better than they were the last year. Aaron Gordon was. And with the backdrop of what he was dealing with in his personal life. Like, again, don't come to me with any Aaron Gordon trade ideas until you have told me why they can't move Jamal Murray, why they can't move Michael Porter, why they can't package some of these young players and improve the team that way. These other ideas must be flushed out before we can even entertain the idea of trading Aaron Gordon. Because those guys, and Aaron Gordon has been this since he arrived. He was the missing piece to a championship team. He was the catalyst that put them over the top. And he delivered in a major way in this postseason. A major way. His interim head coach definitely impressed.
Aaron Gordon is incredible. What he played with today, I don't know many people that would even attempt to go out there and run up and down. And he did it in a game 7 against Oklahoma City on the road. That was one of the most incredible things I've ever seen.
It was incredible. It really was. And it was just a shame that not enough of his teammates backed him up as the Nuggets fall in game 7 and fall hard. So now the real decisions need to be made beyond head coach and general manager, but in concert with it. The question being, does this Nuggets team have enough to win a title? You'll hear the Nuggets' thoughts and mine as well next on Extra Sports 1300. Welcome in Drive Time Sports on this Monday. The weather fitting the mood as the Denver Nuggets get their doors blown off in Game 7, 125-93. But I appreciate you hanging in there and joining me today. Appreciate you watching the show on our social media platforms at Extra Sports 1300 on Facebook, X, Instagram, and YouTube. Now, it did take a little longer than last year to end pretty much the same way last year's season ended, with a bitterly disappointing Game 7 performance by the Denver Nuggets. And it really shouldn't be that much of a surprise, in all honesty, considering that this is pretty much the same team that lost Game 7 to Minnesota a year ago. What's the they may call that the definition of insanity? It's pretty much the same team as last year. Didn't get any further. That's not surprising. But the question has to be asked, and was asked many a time at the post-game podium, including to Nikola Jokic, can this team still win a title?
I mean, we didn't, so obviously we can't. If we could, we will win it. So I don't believe in those if stuff. So we had the opportunity, we didn't win it. So I think we can't.
Once again, Nikola Jokic, the voice of reason, giving it to you straight. If we could have, we would have. Essentially, that's his sentiment. So they can't win. They can't win as currently constructed. So what is the argument to run it back next year? I submit there is none. They have to make changes. Now, how significant it changes, that's what we're fixing to discuss. But there have to be changes. And there has to be adding. You have to be adding something. They keep losing things. The last 2 years, they've lost. You got to gain something in order to set yourself up to progress and to take another step next year. And there are really two levels to this question of what changes need to be made. The first level is whether the vision Calvin Booth had for this team, how he thought this team was going to remain in a window of contention, if that was right. And I will tell you, it was. Under the NBA's rules, Calvin Booth's vision for this team was correct. Where Calvin Booth failed so miserably was on the execution of said vision. The way that you can navigate around this incredibly punitive second luxury tax apron is by supplementing the core of your roster with draft picks. Calvin Booth wasn't wrong. He just messed up. He just bungled the delivery. Because listen to Nikola Jokic talk about the prevailing theme between the teams that are now still remaining in the NBA playoffs.
I think we played so long for such a way, and it's hard for the guys to step up and especially play, especially against two really good teams, Clippers and OKC. We cannot ask for somebody who didn't play maybe 20, 30 games to jump in and be good and expect him to be good, but Julian step up, he was good. Peyton, he was in a rotation, but he had some good minutes too. So definitely seems like the teams that has a longer rotation, longer bench, it's the one who are winning. Indiana, what's the name? OKC, so Minnesota.
Two interesting points there that Nikola Jokic makes. One is to the whole fight between Michael Malone and Calvin Booth in the first place. Calvin Booth thought that this was the way to go. Pushed all of his draft capital to a couple of year window to get as many of these young players as he can. But Michael Malone wouldn't play them. And it's that chicken or the egg. Were they not good enough and deserving enough to get minutes, or should Michael Malone have invested more? And if he would have, we would see the fruits of that labor. But Nikola Jokic touched on that. These guys aren't in the rotation. And then you're like, help us. Help us win in the playoffs. And they can't. But then he goes into Indiana, Minnesota, and OKC. Where is their depth? They don't have a bunch of Russell Westbrooks on their roster. It's all young players. That's where their depth comes from. So Calvin Booth's not wrong. He just didn't get the guys, the right guys. And you look at one draft in particular, you take Peyton Watson over Ryan Nebhart, who's playing in the Eastern Conference Finals for Indiana. Jalen Williams, the other one, the bigger one for OKC, drafted after Peyton Watson. So that's one issue. Was Calvin Booth right in what he was trying to do? Yes. But I think he bungled it. But then the next step is really the bigger question is what everyone wants to get into. Right? Do you touch the core four in order to get you what you need? Is the core of this team capable of winning a title? Here's Jamal Murray's answer to that.
100%. Just came up short tonight. I'll get back in the gym and get back to it for next year.
I don't see how the Denver Nuggets can be better next year without doing anything with their core players. I legitimately don't see it. To expect a different result, you have to look at the biggest name players on your roster. And really, there's two kinds of trades that the Nuggets could make this offseason. One, you could trade somebody like Jamal Murray, who has value. You're not going to get back a better player than Jamal Murray. But maybe you get two guys who are just a cut below and will make your roster deeper and will be guys that you can rely on in the playoffs as part of your rotation. Or you do the move that I've been mentioning for months, and that's take Porter with a Peyton Watson, for example. Take whatever draft capital you have left, offer it up to Phoenix, and say, give us Kevin Durant. Now, is that making you deeper? No, it's actually making you less deep. But it's certainly giving you a bona fide shot maker, which the Nuggets lacked in this series. And it makes them, their top line talent better. And then you do the other thing that has to happen regardless of the moves you make this offseason, and that's the next head coach. Use a lot of the season to pour into the younger players. Whatever combination of them are left on this roster, the next head coach of the Denver Nuggets, whether it be David Adelman or someone else, have to take time, have to make it a priority. Because this idea that David Adelman and actually David Adelman's unwillingness to play them should be a good indication. I understand if Michael Malone, you've known for a while, doesn't like to play young players. But here's David Adelman telling you almost the same thing. I can't play these guys. Now, again, what's the reason for that? Are they simply not good enough, or did Michael Malone not invest in them enough? You got to find out. You got to force Julian Strawther into the rotation. You got to force Jalen Pickett into the rotation. Deron Holmes, you got to, even though this is going to be his first NBA season, you got to play him. And it's going to cost you wins. It will inevitably cost you wins. But you have to keep harping on the fact that we're trying to become a better team in the postseason. And in order to do that, we need to improve our depth. The Nuggets aren't playing with fewer players than everybody else. They have the same amount of roster spots as everybody else. They just can't rely on enough of them. And I think both options are on the table. I think they have to look at both. I think they legitimately have to. Like, Porter's the easy one. That's the low-hanging fruit. You're going to say trade Porter? Of course. Everybody is going to say trade Porter. Okay? The problem with him is his trade value is not going to be very high. To Tom's earlier text that in his mind, MPJ signing might be worse than Russell Wilson. And it could be if the Nuggets can't get out of it. And I feel for Michael Porter. I really do. But this is a results-driven business. And no matter what he was dealing with, the results were poor again. So if you could take Michael Porter and some other pieces and come back with a Kevin Durant, that makes the Nuggets better. Doesn't make them deeper, but they're better. Because their biggest issue was not the fact that they couldn't go 8 or 9 deep on the roster like OKC had. They couldn't rely on anyone to make shots. Aaron Gordon turned out to be one of their most consistent shot makers. And that was the last thing that he was brought in to do. And that's what gets me back to the point of the Nuggets. They can still be a little bit different than everyone else, but they can't be so wildly different. You have to be able to knock down three-pointers. Christian Brown couldn't do it enough. Jamal Murray couldn't do it enough. Michael Porter hardly did it at all. And forget about calling upon anyone from the bench. Russell Westbrook is taking a 25-footer that goes about 40 feet. So I think that's the good news, maybe, is that I think there's more than one direction that they can take this. But they gotta take it in some direction. They gotta do something to show that they can be better in some way, shape, or form. You know, the answer Michael Malone gave at Media Day this year for how the Nuggets were going to become a better three-point shooting team was totally unsatisfying. He said, well, if Jamal makes a couple and this part, like, you've asked enough of them. And some of those guys didn't even end up doing that. But the answer, just like for the general manager role, the answer has to be from outside the organization. You have to go get something. So you want to be more top, you be more top heavy, but you be better in the starting five with somebody like a Kevin Durant? Or do you take somebody like Jamal Murray and you get deeper? That's that's really the choice. Heck, put them both on the table. Because here's the other part that's looming, and it's starting to hit the news cycle a little bit. They have to pay Christian Brown soon. Like they're going to have another one of these guys that is due for a big payday. What are they going to do? They already can't afford the 4 guys that are well compensated now and be able to build a championship roster. You're going to throw Christian Brown into the mix? So they got it one way or another, either shorten their runway by bringing in an older player on a shorter deal than Michael Porter's on or Jamal Murray's on, or you're going to have to leverage Christian Brown to get something. Like this idea that it's just he's going to get $30 million a year, I saw from Bobby Marks. Like, how? How are they going to pay Christian Brown $30 million a year? Forget even the idea of if they should pay him that much money, because the people screaming that the Nuggets have paid all these players, you better not be rubber stamping Christian Brown's contract extension. Because they're going to find themselves in the exact situation they're in right now. And maybe there's some aspect of Christian Brown. Maybe in some ways you would trade Christian Brown's contract for Michael Porter's. But it still puts you in a precarious position when it comes to the salary cap. Still gives you a lack of flexibility to be able to make moves. But the bottom line is, as currently constructed, they're not winning a title next year. I'll just call it right now. They run it back. They have zero chance of winning a title next year. So who are they going to bring in and what are they going to give up to do it? And as I say that, and it sounds so obvious, right? I've gotten texts in from you saying essentially the same thing. Got to make moves. Here's what I worry about. And it's a chilling thought. Every minute that goes by, I think it's less and less likely that the Nuggets make any moves. I think Josh Kroenke, I can envision in my head Josh Kroenke sitting up there at the microphone and saying that firing Michael Malone was exactly what they needed, and now we just need to see David Adelman coach this team for a year. Every minute that goes by. That it's a nightmare. It's not a dream. It's a nightmare. That vision becomes more and more clear to me. There is a very good chance that the Nuggets essentially stand pat. That would not be the way I would go with it. But we got to put that possibility in there because it's there. They might just pin all of this on Malone and Booth. They can't. But they might. 719-247-1313. There is some significance to the Denver Nuggets being eliminated from the playoffs, not just locally, but in the NBA as a whole. Do you notice that of the 4 remaining teams, none of them have won a title in recent times? And that, according to Adam Silver, or at least according to his actions, is by design. Is it good for the league? We'll discuss next on Extra Sports 1300. So the Nuggets, as currently constructed, not good enough to win a title. So what do they do to fix that? Brett says Kevin Durant. There you go. Trade some young kids for a 3 awesome or above average bench player. You might have something, but you have nothing in Michael Porter Jr. Here's the issue, because I've been thrown out the Kevin Durant name for months. Here's the problem. What you are doing is essentially taking your junk, with all due respect, and asking the Phoenix Suns to take it for you in order to get a player that can help any number of teams win a championship. So how are they going to become the highest bidder? I think here's the key. Their next draft pick, I believe, is a couple years away. You could offer up that pick, and the bet that the Suns would be making is maybe with more minutes, maybe we can get something out of these young guys. But also, if this all goes to Hades for the Denver Nuggets in the next couple of years and Nikola Jokic gets traded, now we own their pick when they're not very good. So, again, it's not easy. There are no easy answers. You can't just say, well, trade Michael Porter for a couple of young up and coming players. Just trade Michael Porter for Kevin Durant. But it's why the GM hire is so important, because you need somebody that can make those kind of trades happen with whatever sweetener you need to throw into the mix. Sure, all the young players, maybe first, then Porter, then Jamal Murray. I think you have to keep all of those options open. First things first, you need somebody who's going to be picking up the phone. So as we line out this offseason, first thing, we got to figure out who the permanent head coach of the Denver Nuggets will be and who the permanent GM of the Nuggets will be. It'll be interesting to see how quickly Josh Kroenke moves. I would say the quicker he moves, the worse news it will be, because it will be status quo. It will be Adelman and Tenzer. If he takes a little bit, then maybe there's a chance that they're going with an outside hire. So that's coming up. But in the meantime, with the Nuggets losing, we are guaranteed to have our 7th different NBA champion in 7 years, regardless of who wins it. In fact, there's 3 teams that have never won a title that are vying for it. So no matter what, we'll have at least one team playing in the NBA Finals trying to win their first championship ever. And the Knicks haven't won for decades. First time in history we've had a stretch like this. The NBA has never had 7 different champions in 7 years. We haven't even had and that's why I'm saying with the Nuggets, we haven't even had a team come back after a year or 2 years and win. It's not just no repeat champions. It's we don't even have the teams that have won recently in the mix at this stage. Never seen that in the NBA. True parity has arrived in the NBA. The parity that the NFL has. It's kind of a teaser parity, because it's a parity when it comes to, making the playoffs after missing the previous year. And I'll use the Broncos as a perfect example. The Broncos are a byproduct of the type of parity the NFL has, which is you can turn it around quickly and get to the playoffs, but don't even bother with likening yourself to a championship contender. That takes longer. So the Broncos were a perfect example of that. They made a big jump this past year, but they weren't even close to being in the championship conversation. With the NBA, it's all the way through. They have the play-in now. You don't even have to be a legitimate playoff team to be in the playoffs. And then that parity extends all the way to the top. We're going to have a 7th different champion in 7 years. So is that level of parity, true parity, good for the league? And I want to zoom out a little bit or try to detach myself from the situation, because for the Nuggets, for the Lakers, for the Bucks, for the Warriors, this is bad. And I guess I shouldn't include the Lakers because of what transpired this season. I'll look at Milwaukee and Denver. I think they're two really good examples of this. It sucks for them. It absolutely sucks. Because they should, under the previous system, have another shot. And neither team has gotten particularly close since they won a title. So I'm trying to not just look at it through Nuggets lenses and look at it for the league as a whole. I think the average NBA fan would be quite pleased with this development. But I think that there is a critical mass. There is a tipping point that we could get to where it actually harms the product. Because part of what sustains this medium, sports fandom in general, is those big conversations. Jordan, LeBron has sustained this league for about a decade. And now you're in an era where, as good as the Nuggets were 2 years ago, the Celtics were last year, the Bucks were a few years ago, they will never be in that bigger conversation. You can't, with a straight face, argue that the Denver Nuggets are better than the Bulls or the Warriors or Tim Duncan Spurs or, the Miami Heat teams that went even back to back, even the teams that won a couple of titles and were done. Forget those long dynastic runs. You can't even compare these teams recently to ones who won 2 titles. And yes, it's ring culture, but it permeates throughout all sports. And we love to have those bigger conversations. And now in the conversation has been reduced to, who would you take, the 2023 Nuggets or the 2024 Celtics? Who would you take, the bubble Lakers or the Kawhi-led Toronto Raptors? Those aren't big conversations. So I think that that's lacking, and that's not a good thing. But here's the other part. At what point do we have an NBA champion crown? Let's just say it's the Knicks this year, which would be a great story. I think there are great stories throughout these 2 conference finals. So that's why I say maybe we're not in a bad place yet, but we're going to get here. At what point do we look at a team like the Knicks and go, wow, what a great story they were. So who are they getting rid of? Who are they getting rid of? Mikal Bridges? Josh Hart? Inevitably, one of these guys has to go. There's no way the Knicks are going to be able to run it back. So who's going? Is that the kind of conversation we want to have? Because that's the thing here. They put in these rules to prevent super teams, which I think most NBA fans can get behind. Okay, we don't like super teams, but we do enjoy greatness. Like the Spurs weren't a super team. Right? The Bulls weren't a super team. That was just made through good general managing. I know that guy's name is Mud, but he did a heck of a job building up that roster. We don't want the stars just joining up with other stars because it's easier. No, we don't want that. But we do want greatness. We want great teams. And you know what this era of the NBA is costing us? Look at the players that are having to leave. Yeah, you see Klay Thompson go, and that's a big name. But where is he at in his career now? He's not full-blown Splash Brothers Klay Thompson anymore. But look at these other guys. These rules have cost the Denver Nuggets Kentavious Caldwell-Pope and Bruce Brown. For the Bucks, it cost them a Drew Holiday. Like if the Knicks win, I think the most likely player that's going to be on another team at some point is Josh Hart. Because they're going to pay Mikal Bridges. Like, it's not costing teams the ability to build super teams. It's costing them the glue guys. The guys that you have to have in order to win a championship, but don't make you this Goliath, this super team. Like, that's what the Nuggets have lost. The Nuggets haven't lost their star. They still have Jamal Murray. They still have Nikola Jokic. But it's cost them two vital pieces to a championship team. And not at all the guys that you would join. If you saw Bruce Brown or KCP or Drew Holiday just join up with the team, you wouldn't be super team, skirting the rules, taking the easy way out. Players aren't like that, but they are so essential to a championship winning team. That's what we want to eliminate. We want the championship teams to not be able to retain those kind of players. We're not there yet, but there's going to come to a point where this level of parity will backfire on the NBA. If we're not already there, I allow for the possibility that we are there. These conference finals will be a great, especially if New York gets knocked out. If New York gets knocked out, then we really may have this conversation. But no matter what team wins, it will cost them something. It's like Thanos and Avengers. What did it cost you? Everything. Well, everything is a vital glue guy, role player to make your team whole and make your team a championship contender. Now you can't have those guys anymore because super team. No, you go, organizations that are building it the right way go and get those players. And that's what bothers me the most about it. And it's not just the Nuggets. The Milwaukee Bucks, I feel, are a tragic example of this. And by the way, the ghost of Christmas future for the Denver Nuggets. I know no one wants to hear it, but the arc that the Bucks have been on, the Nuggets are on that arc. And you know what the next thing the Bucks are going to do is. Something that was unthinkable just a couple of years ago. So all this, well, they never get rid. Look at Milwaukee. Milwaukee built a championship team. They got punished for it. They tried to make a big swing to bring in Damian Lillard. Still didn't work. And now they're going to trade Giannis and start over. That is not a reality that is impossible in Denver. It's not now. We're not there yet. But this is what this system is causing. We just want to get rid of super teams. We didn't want to get rid of great teams. Couldn't there have been another way? But maybe for now, people like it. The fact that none of these teams will ever hold a candle to Shaq and Kobe's Lakers or Magic and Kareem's Lakers or the Bulls or the Spurs. Like, we're never going to have a conversation again with those teams. They're out of it. Have your conversation who's better, Warriors or Bulls, because there's never going to be a team that even remotely deserves to be in that conversation because all of these teams are just going to be one and done. And by the time they get back there, they're going to look so different that it's not even going to be the same team. Perhaps it's the law of unintended consequences. Perhaps this was not the intention of Adam Silver and the owners. Can't forget about the owners, including the one who owns the Denver Nuggets. The owner of the Denver Nuggets was a proponent in this current system that is now making his team be in an impossible position to where they either have to give up one of their most important players or be doomed to getting bounced in the second round for the next decade. 719-247-1313. Take your thoughts on that. Get back into the Aaron Gordon of yesterday because that was tremendous. But could that situation have been avoided? Aaron Gordon thinks so. I'll explain or have him explain next. This text coming in from the 719, one league that doesn't have super teams, NHL. It's true. NHL does not have super teams, and they also don't have all these ridiculous, financial rules that ruin teams. I mean, Toronto's been trying out the same core four for years now. They don't have to do all of this. And it's great. You know what? We are seeing, and they're a perfect example, because in the Western Conference, and try to remove the Avalanche fandom for a second here. Dallas and Edmonton's fantastic series. I'm not tired of Dallas versus Edmonton. I'm not tired of seeing Connor McDavid play late in the postseason. I haven't gotten tired of the Florida Panthers yet. I mean, I don't love everything about the Panthers, but I'm not tired of having them advance this far in the postseason. Because we appreciate greatness. We appreciate teams that repeatedly are in the mix and marvel at how they are able to do it, because not that many teams can. But Florida is a great example, because Florida, if they were in the playing under the NBA's rules, we wouldn't hear from them ever again. And yet here they are on the cusp of going to another Stanley Cup final. NHL's problem is these manufactured first-round series. Don't like those. But if you want, you could keep going back to the texter's point. You can keep, going back. Why did it feel okay for certain NBA stars to take an easy way out to go win a title? Like, that's really where it started. Adam Silver and the owners are kind of reacting to something that happened before. I think you know who I'm referring to. And I think you understand the impact, the negative impact he had on the league when he did the thing that he did. And in so many ways, that will be a lasting legacy of his. So if we're really trying to, find where to blame, you got to go before the owners, because the idea of a super team didn't exist for much of NBA's history. I don't think that we grow as tired of seeing the same teams as executives or whatever think that we do. I mean, here's the perfect example. Okay, when it was the Cavs going up against the Warriors every year, was that worse, or is this? If one of your teams has a title, it's hard to say that you prefer a time when they never won a title. But I think in a lot of ways that was better, because we know these people. The storylines would run deep. Like now people are finding out about who the Pacers are. Like I said, I don't think we're to the tipping point yet, but I don't think that this, if we keep having a rotating cast of champions, it's going to ultimately be good for the NBA. Maybe I'm just early on it. Aaron Gordon, want to get back to him yesterday because he's about the only person on the Denver Nuggets that deserves any level of praise for that abomination we watched yesterday. Toughing it out through a serious hamstring strain, wanting to be there for his teammates, and being arguably the most productive player on the Denver Nuggets. It's remarkable. And Aaron Gordon, even though he played, joins an ever-growing list of these players who are getting these soft tissue injuries that is not, and I want to frame it in the correct way. A healthy Aaron Gordon, the Nuggets do not beat OKC yesterday. They don't. The Celtics did not lose their series when Jason Tatum got hurt. The Knicks had them. But the finality that it brings, like, oh, even if you think they're kind of done, any hope that you have goes away when these injuries happen. Same with the Bucks were probably going to go very far. But once Damian Lillard got hurt, you're like, that's a wrap. They have no shot now. So you have Tatum, you have Damian Lillard, Steph Curry, and now Aaron Gordon. Aaron Gordon thinks that he has a solution potentially for this problem.
Health is a lot, you know. I would really, really appreciate it if there were a couple of days in between games in the playoffs instead of every other day, regardless if you go 7 games. You know, I understand if you do your work early and you get first seed, then you can have some time off. But I think the days in between games, not just off day and a travel day, but a travel day and a recovery day, just two days. I think the product of the game would be a lot better. I think there'd be just a better product on the floor, just to give all these professional athletes just, you know, one more day of rest, and you would see a higher level of basketball, probably less blowouts.
I think he's on to something. Again, I don't want to make this seem like it's ultimately determining the outcome of the playoffs, because I think that would be an unfair characterization of these injuries and the impact they have had. But why can't the NBA do this? I don't know that's going to solve anything, but why can't they? The Nuggets and Thunder had to turn around and play 36 hours after a game. How is that a thing? The Western Conference Finals start tomorrow. They start tomorrow. The series is over. Oklahoma City gets 1 day, and then they have to go up against the Timberwolves. Meanwhile, the Pacers and the Knicks get to wait until Wednesday. How is that a thing? Like, this is where people start to believe that the league is biased toward players and brands and teams. Because I promise you, if LeBron was playing in the Western Conference Final wouldn't start tomorrow. If he was coming off of a Game 7, he wouldn't. It just wouldn't. Those are facts. This is where it looks like the NBA is playing favorites. Why do the New York Knicks and Pacers need to start? And let's be honest, the Knicks. Why they get a start? Why can't they start tomorrow? What's keeping them from starting tomorrow? Can we not give the Thunder an extra day? They're being punished because they gave us the best series of these playoffs so far. Like, there's just some common sense scheduling things that the NBA can do, and maybe it helps. Like, that's kind of where I'm at. Start there. Start where Aaron Gordon is saying. You get 1 day of separation no matter what, but you get a second day if this series is shifting to a new city, a travel day and a rest day. How is that impossible to accomplish? Why do we have to play games 36 hours after the last one? Why do certain teams and certain players get to wait as long as humanly possible to play while these other teams have to turn around immediately? Oklahoma City is just getting done with it. And you saw it with the Nuggets and Thunder. Thunder got their series wrapped up. They were waiting around. Nuggets had to turn around after game 7 and play almost immediately. It's like the NBA can help themselves out with some common sense. I don't think Aaron Gordon is going to solve the issue of people getting hurt. But have we tried everything to try and avoid it? I don't think that the NBA has. 719-247-1313. Spent a lot of time today, of course, talking about how the Nuggets get back to their best, right? Which is where they were a couple of years ago. How about let's talk about you getting back to your best? If you're of a certain age, 40 plus, maybe you're not quite feeling like you're at your best. That's where Low T Center comes in, and why Low T Center over other providers of testosterone replacement therapy or TRT. Why it's them and not others. Because with the others, you waste time and money. With low quality online TRT that charges you over $100 just to start. If you visit with the TRT experts today at Low T Center, you'll meet for a free consultation and a free test. Treatment is personalized to your body, and most major insurance is accepted with the freedom to choose if you want in-center care or at-home treatment. You're in control of your health, and shouldn't that be the way it is? Looking to lose weight? You can get a free B12 shot when you start prescription treatment as well. Offers limited. Book now at fixmylowt.com. That's fixmylowt.com. Hello there. Welcome in. Drive Time Sports on a gloomy Monday fits the occasion, for being honest with ourselves. Nuggets falling in Game 7 last night. Taking your thoughts on it at 719-247-1313. I will be joined by Matt McCraw, who is a senior on the 07 Air Force men's basketball team that is being inducted into the Air Force Athletics Hall of Fame in the fall. If you remember that team coached by Jeff Bzdelik, a program record for wins. So looking forward to chatting with Matt and congratulating him and his teammates on this well-deserved honor. But in the meantime, here are the three stories that are driving the show. Strap in. They're all about the Nuggets. Here's story number one.
Inbound goes to Christian Brown. I just keep feeding Jokic. If they're going to guard, Caruso steals it from Jokic. Back the other way, in the paint, Williams layup good. Holy cow, what a run by the Thunder to close out this first half. 14-1.
Jason Kosmicki on the call for Altitude Sports Radio, as heard right here on Extra Sports 1300. It started off well enough for the Denver Nuggets, didn't it? But ultimately, the Oklahoma City Thunder forced a ton of turnovers, leading to easy baskets on the other end. And going into Game 7, Nikola Jokic talked about the importance of the details, the little things like taking care of the basketball that would ultimately decide who would win that game. And not he nor pretty much anyone on the Denver Nuggets heeded that advice, because they were, I mean, the end of that first half was a complete and utter bleep show with the turnovers. It got to a comical level with the turnovers. And once again, no one on the Denver Nuggets can be trusted to consistently hit open shot opportunities. And it all went south for the Denver Nuggets. And we find ourselves right back to our normally scheduled programming, which is this Nuggets team is not good enough to win a title, and they stall out in the same exact spot they did, and in much the same fashion. There's a bit of embarrassment that goes along with both of these Game 7 losses. Last year with Minnesota, this year with Oklahoma City. But the most important aspect of this is it's the same place. The Denver Nuggets brought the same team back, essentially, and ended up crashing out at the same spot. But it was, not to be all doom and gloom, was a heck of a ride, right? I mean, we were entertained on our way through to inevitably the same result as last year. And it was actually the heroics from some of these Denver Nuggets players that held things together, because on a strictly talent for talent perspective, Thunder probably should have finished the series in 5. Denver Nuggets are not nearly as good as that team. And I think we kind of knew that. But they had some great moments that extended this series. But now we're left with the same feeling that we had 1 year ago. And where does this team go from here? That is the subject of story number 2.
I mean, we didn't, so obviously we can't. If we could, we will win it. So I don't believe in those if stuff. So we had the opportunity, we didn't win it. So I think we can't.
That's Nikola Jokic when asked if this team is capable of winning a title, and he is 100% right. They're not capable. And the only way they're going to be capable is if they make changes. The significance of the changes we've discussed today and will continue to discuss? Do you look at trading a Jamal Murray, or do you look to just simply move out some of your young pieces with a Michael Porter Jr.? But it is readily apparent for anybody that watches the Denver Nuggets that just playing the young guys more during the regular season isn't going to get it done. That they should do that. They should invest more than they have in making these young players the best that they can be. And I think they've come up short in that regard. But I look at the issues with the Denver Nuggets to be bigger than that. The Nuggets are such an outlier from every other team in the NBA. And it's mostly born out of the fact that they have a player that is so unlike anyone else in the league. But Nikola Jokic affords you open three-pointers. Like, how he's different also should allow you to fit in more with what everyone else does. And that's shoot threes. I'm not saying the Nuggets got to just shoot threes. But when you diagnose one of the major issues of this Nuggets team throughout the playoffs, and even yesterday, they can't knock down open three-pointers. Okay? The Nuggets at least have to get to the level where they're knocking down open three-pointers before we talk about anything else. And they couldn't. Michael Porter had one game where he hit threes in this series. The rest of the time, he was awful. Christian Brown couldn't make open threes. Russell Westbrook was putting open threes into the third row of the stands. Like, they have no one that can consistently knock down. Jamal Murray can't even knock down three-pointers consistently. There's something wrong with the fact that their most reliable three-point shooters were Nikola Jokic and Aaron Gordon. There are other players whose in their job description it should be, I knock down open threes. Like the guards. This roster has a major design flaw, and that major design flaw is they can't do the thing that every other team in the league can do. And no matter how you think they go about getting it, they have to go get it. They have to go and find reliable shooters to put around the best passing big man we have ever seen. Because everything stems from that. The Oklahoma City Thunder, you watch this series, they did not respect anyone on the Denver Nuggets not named Nikola Jokic. At times, they respected Jamal Murray. But for the most part, they didn't respect Porter. They didn't respect Christian Brown. They didn't respect anybody the Nuggets would bring off the bench, and I don't blame them for that. So what did they do? Let's throw everybody at Nikola Jokic. That's how they can get him help. Get someone that can make you pay for leaving them open behind the three-point arc. Every team, the Charlotte Hornets, have reliable knockdown three-point shooters. And the Nuggets seem to have none. So you could either look at it one of two ways. Because I think it starts with Porter and Murray. You're going to have to leverage one of your core four players. I just don't see any other way around it. I don't see how you can get the type of player that you need by not leveraging one of those four guys. And Gordon and Jokic should be so far in the back of everyone's mind. They should exhaust every option before trading Aaron Gordon or Nikola Jokic. But either they can take a Porter, package him up with other stuff, and get a player that way, like I've said, a Kevin Durant, which isn't going to make you deeper. In fact, it's going to make you less deep, but at least you have somebody that can knock down an open shot. Or the move that I think can help you address multiple issues is you trade Jamal Murray because you can get something back for him and you can improve your depth and your three-point shooting. I think the most logical trade candidate that would actually be able to help the Denver Nuggets would be Jamal Murray. But is this next GM, whoever it might be, willing to do that? Is Josh Kroenke going to allow him to do that? Because if they just run it back next year, then that's going to be another year they're behind. And it's going to be another year where it's going to just get more and more difficult. They have to be proactive. They've been reacting to the way the NBA has been going for a few years now. They've been reacting. They need to be proactive. Change the makeup of this team to fit more of what the NBA is now. And maybe you have a chance within the next couple of years to get back to the NBA Finals. I'll tell you this much. The way they're doing it, they aren't ever getting back to the NBA Finals. So it's just when they're ready to make the moves necessary to put this team back on the right track. And then here is the third story regarding the Denver Nuggets.
I don't think it's time for me to think about that. We just lost game 7. Our season's over. Decision makers will make that decision. Obviously, blessed to have this opportunity, take the helm and lead this team. Something, obviously, if I'm not back next year, I'll obviously never forget this. It's been an incredible experience. And to have the buy-in from the guys was really special for me.
So David Adelman's audition for the full-time head coaching gig is over. Should he get the interim tag removed? I prioritize this story intentionally because to me, the general manager job is the most important. If you like what you saw from David Adelman, I think there was a lot to like. I think the changing of the voice, the changing of the dynamic where the players were a little bit more empowered, I think was good. I think David Adelman has certainly done more to earn the job than he's done to disqualify himself. But whether you name Adelman or some other head coach, it's not going to matter if you don't bring in a general manager that can make the real changes that need to be made with the Denver Nuggets. But if the new GM is cool with it and Josh Kroenke wants it, I think David Adelman has done enough to give himself a real chance. But simply naming David Adelman the head coach is not going to fix the Denver Nuggets. GM is much more important. Take your thoughts. 719-247-1313. Coming up next, we'll talk more hoops. Matt McCraw, member of the 07 Air Force men's basketball team, being inducted into the Air Force Athletics Hall of Fame, will join me next here on Extra Sports 1300. Welcome back, Drive Time Sports. Ryan Kaufman with you. The Air Force Academy has announced the 12th class of their Athletic Hall of Fame, which includes the 2007 men's basketball team that set a school record for wins in a season. They were ranked as high as 11th in the country at one point and advanced to the NIT semifinals. Joining me now is someone who is a senior leader on that team, averaging 11 points a night. This past season, he served as an assistant under head coach Joe Scott, trying to usher in the next great Air Force men's basketball team. Matt McCraw, my guest. Matt, congratulations, and thanks for the time today.
Ryan, no problem. Thanks for having me. Definitely appreciate you taking some time out of your busy day to highlight this special team.
Well, it is my pleasure because I had a blast watching that team, and I can't help, when I saw the announcement, I can't help but think back to your freshman year and kind of what started there, right? You go to the NCAA tournament, you end up losing to that North Carolina team with Joe Scott as the head coach. Did that, and then a few years later, that team with you as one of their seniors, was, to you, did that kind of feel like the ground floor of what eventually happened in 2007?
Yeah, you're exactly right, Ryan. That 2003-2004 team was really the foundation for us continue to build this thing going in the right direction at Air Force. And, I would even venture to say even before that, right? I mean, there were a lot of times starting when Coach got there in 2000 where there were a lot of close games, but they just couldn't get over the hump. So that 03-04 team was definitely the foundation for myself and my class, who all graduated in 2007, to be able to continue to build upon that and do something special like we did at Air Force.
And then the year before, you guys had a terrific season. So you were coming into that 06-07 year with some real expectation for what you guys could do. What was that dynamic like, knowing that, hey, it's not just if Air Force does well, that's great. It's you're expected to. I imagine that's kind of a different dynamic than maybe in previous years.
Yeah. Given that 05-06 year, we did go to the NCAA tournament. Unfortunately, we lost to Illinois that year. But even in our scheduling, even in our mentality, we knew that people were going to be putting a target on us versus us, putting a target on other people. And if you look at the way we scheduled my senior year, looking back at it, it was something impressive, right? I mean, we had to have a great offseason. We had to be collectively all on the same page because we had some heavy hitters that we put on the schedule for that 06-07 year, to include the CBE Classic, where we were in the Stanford region and ended up going on and playing against Duke and Texas Tech in the Final Four, where Marquette actually rounded out and actually won that CBE Classic.
Yeah, to your point, you guys play Stanford with the Lopez brothers, and Landry Fields was on that team. You play Duke. Obviously, current Duke head coach John Shire was on that team. Texas Tech had Jarius Jackson, and that dude could flat out ball. He was so good there at Texas Tech. So you played big brands, you played big time players, but one of the things you mentioned, Matt, is fascinating to me. Like, you walked into that gym and it was a mutual respect. You weren't like little brother coming in, that there was a lot of respect that those teams showed you guys that I think was born out of the success you had the years prior.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Whenever we went into different venues, of course, talking about the CBE Classic, and it was at the neutral site out in Kansas City, there was a lot of respect, right? People didn't just look at us as being little old Air Force. They knew what we did in the past. They knew what we were expecting of ourselves to do in the future. And one quick story about that CBE Classic, which really sticks in my mind, is that, yeah, we did make it to the Final Four there. We played Duke. Unfortunately, we lost to Coach K and Duke. But that next night, where Jackson was the star of their team. That team was coached by Bobby Knight, and so back-to-back nights, you're actually going against two of the all-time great coaches, and people who you really look up to, and you go back and you look and see what they accomplished in their careers. Of course, both having brief stints at Army sprinkled in there, but it was something special to play against Duke and Texas Tech back-to-back nights in Kansas City. Now, unfortunately, we did lose to Duke, but we ended up beating Texas Tech, and that was right before Bobby Knight actually had the most wins. I think it was around his 900th win or something like that they were trying to get against us. So we didn't want to be in the history books for sure.
That's awesome. Matt McCraw, my guest, member of the 07 Air Force men's basketball team, set a program record for wins and will be inducted into the Air Force Athletics Hall of Fame in September. You can't go into matchups with Coach K and Bobby Knight if you don't have a coach that can match them in some way. I mean, talk about the importance of Coach Bzdelik on that team and what he brought to the table. I mean, we talked about where it started with the foundation Joe Scott laid, but then you go to Jeff Bzdelik. What was he able to bring out of that basketball team that you were a part of?
Yeah, I'll actually talk just a little bit before Coach Bzdelik, right? Obviously, Coach Scott was there our first year.
Mm-hmm.
Then we had Coach Mooney, who was our associate head coach my freshman year. Yes, Chris Mooney, who is at Richmond right now. He continued to build on that foundation.
Mm-hmm.
And then whenever you have Coach Bzdelik coming in, who had NBA background, and I mean there was so many times where he would sit in practices or in huddles and say, hey, we ran this with the Nuggets for Carmelo and Kenyon Martin and J.R. Smith. And we're just looking like side by side to say, yeah, we're pretty confident in our skills, but as far as the same type of players that he's running these sets for, that was truly impressive. So to have him come in after we had two coaches in the previous 2 years and really say, hey, look, you guys are my guys. I'm going to help you guys out in any and every way, and specifically on the court, coming with so much knowledge and so much expertise. And that was even before his time when he was the head coach with the Denver Nuggets. He definitely demanded respect. And it was a mutual agreement that we were going to give everything we had to continue to have this Air Force thing rolling in the right trajectory.
When he turned on a Nuggets film or talked about some of the plays he ran with the Denver Nuggets, who were you on the Denver Nuggets? If somebody was Carmelo, somebody was Kmart, somebody was JR, who were you?
Yeah, I would say, we didn't go over each player, right? But I mean, even looking at that, I mean, I'm a SoCal guy. So Andre Miller would be somebody who I would want to, be kind of at the head, orchestrating everything to make sure that we're getting the best possible shot we can get in that situation. And we practice different situations at every practice, and so that wasn't a foreign environment whenever we got in there, right? And it was just an unbelievable time to have someone with his knowledge and expertise come in and even with everything that he had ran throughout his entire career, he did not change our offense that much, right? He allowed us to go out there and compete the right way, doing what we like to call the fundamentals of the Air Force offense. But then he would have tweaks here and there, or it'll be a baseline of bounds play or a sideline of bounds play, or he'll just call a wrinkle to one of our main sets. And to have him really allow us to continue to run what we have been running, but just put some tweaks in there and give us different things to think about as we were playing and as we were preparing in practice. That was one of the things that stood out to all of us, is that he would kind of morph into what we were doing and, add different elements to that. and that was a huge amount of trust that he had in us, and obviously we trusted him back, and great things happened, specifically in those final 2 years of my career.
And that's such a good point you make, right? Because you have 3 head coaches over your time at Air Force. And if they're all trying to reinvent the wheel, like you guys don't have the success that you ended up having, right? If Coach Mooney wants to be a complete 180 from what Joe Scott did, and then Bzdelik wants to throw everything out the window that Coach Mooney had, I mean, it's been lost a little bit in college basketball now, because there is, either because of the one and done or now because of the transfer portal, there's very little continuity that teams are able to have. But back then you guys were able to have that, not just with the roster, but with the coaches. And as you're pointing out, it was a big reason why you were able to continue to build and progress and get to setting the all-time program mark for wins. Yeah.
Yeah, whenever you can have continuity in your players, right? Any type of continuity you could have in your staff, that is definitely going to help you out. And one of the things about that team that made that time so special in my life is that, sure, we had continuity on the floor, but we also had continuity off the floor, right? I mean, we would hang out together. I was joking with my family because now Colorado Springs has, gained, its population has increased almost, 2 and 3 times since I was here back in 2007 with that special team. And I still remember going down to the IMAX theater on Powers and Barnes. And like, that was the closest theater that we had that had IMAX, right? And we were going there watching Spider-Man and IMAX. And now there's, seems like 5 theaters in between the Academy and Powers and Barnes right now. So, it was just great just to hang out off the floor, because obviously having that trust off the floor got us some wins in tough situations on the floor. And we knew that bond was unbreakable. And even when I broke the news to all of my teammates, they were pumped. And, we have a separate chat now just to prepare for the night of September 26th. And that thing is always going off with a great memory that happened this time, both on or off the court, or, just sending pictures of our families now. It's a very tight group. And I'm definitely excited to celebrate that special team with my teammates late in September.
Do you have a speaking role on the 26th?
I do not know yet. Obviously, Coach Bzdelik will, and just to have him talk about all of us and talk about that staff as well. I am sure that he is going to speak better than I ever could up there on stage, for sure.
But if you were to speak, which teammate would you, because any part of one of these good speeches, you got to needle someone a little bit, right? You got to, it can't, you all love each other, obviously, but you want to get a little jab in there. What teammate would you probably try to jab a little bit? If you were just speaking on behalf of everybody, which teammate would you target?
Oh man, I'm actually going to flip this another way. I would say one of the things about that team that I still wish I could have helped one individual with would be Tim Anderson, right? So on that team, we had four of our guys on that team that were 1,000-point scorers, right? It was myself, Jake Birchie, Danny Wailele, Nick Welch, and then Tim Anderson. That is the one thing that if I could go back, I think Tim ended just short of 1,000, but that tells you about that team where we all gave up individual opportunities for the betterment of that team. And so it isn't a jab, but I wish I could have threw a couple more passes to him that would have helped him get or surpass that 1,000 point mark, because he definitely deserves it, right? And the next year he went on to be the Mountain West Defensive Player of the Year. And as a guard, that is unheard of in this tough league. Even back then, it was extremely unheard of for a guard to win Defensive Player of the Year. But I would say not necessarily a jab, but I would say one to help my teammate get above 1,000 points. I would have thrown a few more passes his way. Now on the flip side, let me see. One of the jabs that I would have to give out would probably go to Jake Birchie, right? So so during the practices, Coach Bazdelic would have an exercise bike on the side, and not a lot of people know this, but if you turn the ball over, you had to go and ride that exercise bike, right? And so Jake, everyone knows how Jake, gave 100% on the court. He was diving over loose balls. He was making passes. Well, one practice, he was turning it over quite a bit, right? So, one of the things one of the nicknames that we gave him after that practice was Lance Armstrong, right? And we needed, and we actually needed to have a yellow penny just to go over his jersey so he can go and ride over there, maybe like a Live Strong bracelet or something like that. So if I was giving a speech, which I don't think I'll be asked to do that, but I would have had it underneath the podium where I could, give him something that was thinking about him on that bike and correlating that to Lance Armstrong.
Oh, well now it has to happen, Matt. Like I will exert whatever influence I have, which is none, to try and allow you to be able to do that on September 26th. That's really cool. Man,
now everyone knows that it's going to happen.
Yeah.
So
that's true.
So I have to think of something else.
Yeah. Well, you just know that you have to do something. Now that's going to happen. Let me ask you, just, since we're chatting here, how's it going for the current iteration of Falcons? I know right now you guys are hitting the road. You're trying to build a foundation for the next great Air Force team. How's it going out there?
Yeah, it's going well. So obviously this last weekend was our first live period where we can go out and recruit potential Falcons.
Mm-hmm.
But in saying that, whenever we start our summer with our current guys, we're going to continue to work with them.
Mm-hmm.
And, one thing about Air Force, and you hit on it earlier in the, NIL stages and the transfer portal and the landscape of college sports right now, yes, it is difficult, but we always feel confident because of the work that our coaching staff and our players put in every offseason. And so that's one of the things where, skill development, even back in the day, whenever it was the 2006, 2017, is essential to the success, and it's vital to the success of Air Force basketball. And I would say even more so in today's day and age, right? Because if you get people to continue to develop, if you get people to continue to stay, and you get people to continue to become juniors to become seniors, right? And freshmen to become sophomores and have them stay throughout the rest of their career, that goes back to that continuity piece that we talked about, where having a class stay there for 4 years, you can really do something special. Because when you talk about how we run the offense or how we run our defense and all these Air Force type of principles, when you get reps over those 4 years and some 5 with, some of us going to the prep school and using that route, all those reps really matter when you become juniors and seniors. And that allows you to beat people that most others don't think you have a chance against.
Yeah, something has always stuck with me that Frank Serratori, the hockey coach, always says the best Air Force teams are when they're deep and when they're old. I think that applies to every team at the Air Force Academy. You guys this year had a bunch of young dudes, but you hang on to them. You see the talent. If you could just, get them through, like you're talking about, juniors becoming seniors, it will be a lot of fun at the Air Force Academy for the men's basketball team. Matt, this was awesome, man. Congratulations. It was fun to stroll down memory lane with you, and we'll see you on the 26th.
Sounds great, Ryan. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it. And go Falcons.
Absolutely. Go Falcons indeed. Matt McCraw, member of the 07 men's basketball team, joining me here on Drive Time Sports. Yeah, Jeff Bazdelic coached that team the year before they went to the NCAA tournament. I mean, just the sustained run. I remember watching, obviously, I had no idea what my life was going to turn out to be, that I would be covering Air Force sports in any capacity. I remember watching that team that Matt was on as a freshman, and he contributed. That was the other part of it too. Just dovetailing off of what Matt was just discussing. Like, he played as a freshman. That freshman class in Joe Scott's last year of his first stint with Air Force, like, he played. These guys played, and then eventually they become the seniors on this team, and they're a veteran-laden team, and they're able to put together a sustained run of success for 4 years. I mean, Matt's part of one of the most successful classes of Air Force men's basketball players ever, considering what they were able to do. 2 NCAA tournament appearances, a deep run in the NIT. I remember watching that game. I was in my dorm room, not at Air Force. I couldn't get into Air Force even if I tried. But I remember at my college dorm room, we all gathered around and watched that Air Force team take on North Carolina. And then it just perpetuate, right? 2 years after that, they were back in the NCAA tournament, set a program record for wins. That 4th year that Matt was there. It was just awesome. Awesome, those Air Force teams, and very well-deserved honor, of course. And what's cool, and shouts to Troy Garnhart, the GOAT of media relations coordinators, SIDs. We're getting all of these inductees on this week. So look out for that. The class is not just the 07 men's basketball team, but the whole list is up there. Go AirForceFalcons.com. But you're going to hear from all of them this week. And again, the induction ceremony is on September 26th. Nice respite from the heavy Nuggets day that we have had, although want to get back to that with your thoughts to close out the show after this. Great stuff from Matt McCraw. Really appreciate him joining me, and apparently some of you did as well. Drew from the 719 says, as an Air Force vet, that was an awesome interview. Reminiscing about IMAX Theater on Powers was epic. Thank you again. Yeah, that was funny. Matt McCraw talking about the fact that they used to have to drive all the way down for the IMAX Powers in Barnes, and now that's Tinseltown, yeah, by the Vibe Stadium, and now it's like they're everywhere. Yeah, Colorado Springs has changed quite a bit, hasn't it? So that was great stuff, from Matt. And again, the whole list. Just announce it. So you have Tim Jefferson, Air Force quarterback. Dan Oosterhuis, who was played tennis at Air Force, became the head coach. Cross country national champion Mike Ryan, former head coach Jeff Heidmas, who was also water polo standout. And that's the thing with me that I noticed too. So you have Matt McCraw is one, and then you have Dan and you have Jeff, all former players at Air Force, former athletes at Air Force who came back to coach. I mean, doesn't that say something about Air Force and what the bonds and stuff that Matt was talking about? All these coaches listed as player, assistant coach, head coach for like 2. And then Matt McCraw, player, now assistant coach. So looking forward to doing that through the week. Obviously, the big discussion this week is going to be based around the Denver Nuggets and where they go from here. One thing to keep in mind, not to pile on, do you know there's one NBA team that does not have a draft pick in the Cooper Flag draft this summer? Yeah, that one, the Denver Nuggets. Their first round pick this year was traded to Orlando in the Aaron Gordon deal. And their second round pick, I believe, was traded with Reggie Jackson to offload his contract. So traded for Reggie Jackson or traded with Reggie Jackson? One of the two. Point is, they're gone. And that's why I say Calvin Booth was not wrong. Look at the teams that are winning. They are young teams built mostly through the draft that are deep. The Denver Nuggets, he tried to do the right thing. I think he had the right idea. I just think it was a combination of he bungled it, right? Don't sign Zeke Naji to a contract extension before he deserves it. And Zeke Naji, another guy who couldn't get on the floor in the playoffs. And then Michael Malone not investing in these guys. And I think you have seen with David Adelman that he's at least willing to give them a shot. But you got to earn it. And Julian Strawther was a great example. Look at Julian Strawther the last 3 games. Like, he's appeared in all of these games, and only one of those 3 games has he deserved to stay out on the court. And I think that that's a fair way of looking at it. The problem was, at times, you thought that Michael Malone would just not play the young players because he didn't want to play young players. David Adelman, at least it feels like there's I'll give you a chance, but you got to earn it. Like the meritocracy of it all. We saw that with Jalen Pickett at the end of the regular season. Saw it with Julian Strawther in this Thunder series. And I think that's all you can ask. Like, there's some of it that falls on the players, but also the coach. You got to be willing to give them a chance. And it just felt like so often Michael Malone wouldn't give them a chance. Just my read from where I'm standing. Now, interestingly enough, Michael Malone has now joined ESPN's coverage of the conference finals. So do I care too much to hear him break down, the Wolves and the Thunder? He knows both teams very well. He could probably give some really good insight. But I'm just in for his first. Let me know when his first appearance is, because they're going to inevitably ask him about the way things ended in Denver, and I want to hear his response. So I got to know when the first. So is it tomorrow? Got to find out when Michael Malone's going to be on, because this will be the first time we've heard him speak since getting fired. And reports were he didn't handle being fired too well. Didn't take it too well. So something to watch out for. Want to leave you with a word from the fine folks at Low T Center. Guys, don't waste time and money with low-quality online TRT. Because you know what? It's a popular category of healthcare. A lot of people are getting into it, and which means that's the quality of some of these providers. It's not great, and they look to charge you quite a bit right out of the gate. Get their money up front. Some of these low-quality online TRT providers charge you over $100 just to start. If you visit Low T Center's TRT experts today, you'll get a free consultation and a free test. You know why? Because they know that you're going to stick around, and they're going to stick around. They're going to see this thing through. They're going to get you back to feeling your best. Treatment is personalized to your body, and most major insurance is accepted. With the freedom to choose if you want in-center care or at-home treatment, you're in control of your health, which shouldn't you be? Looking to lose weight? On a different note, how about getting a free B12 shot when you start prescription treatment? Offer limited. Got book now. FixMyLowT.com. That's FixMyLowT.com. It has been my pleasure to serve you. My thanks to Matt McCraw for being my guest. We're not done with the Nuggets by a long shot all this week. And there's also some news about the future of the Avs as well. So things only getting more interesting from here. Appreciate you joining me. Looking forward to doing it again tomorrow.